Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel on finding your path to your best emotional and physical health. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button if you enjoy what you hear, and don't forget to share this with somebody else that might need this information. Don't forget also to download my 5 free videos on the keys to your best emotional and physical health. Let's get started on today's topic. For those of you that have been following the developmental trauma series, this is the next installment in that particular series. And we're going to talk about the third organizing principle in developmental trauma, which is the trust trauma. Okay, so trust trauma can mean a few different things, but it's usually people that can either be visionary leaders or extremely manipulative. That's how they are going to appear as adults. And it develops from families where attachment needs were either manipulated or attacked or controlled. These are the people that the parents often lived through. So I want you to think of dance moms or sports dads where the child was rewarded for doing what the parent wanted them to do without having the ability to be their own selves and to be loved for who they are. And that's where they don't trust connection and close relationships. So they kind of associate trust with manipulation and hurt and betrayal. And that kind of develops the trust issue. The other thing you might see also is in families with substance abuse problems, because children have to develop a parental role a lot sooner than they would like. And they are forced into this role that continues to keep them betrayed in their true selves and pressured. So these types of trust traumas can end up with kind of different, expressive in different ways as an adult. So there's a couple of different types, such as the seductive type. The seductive type are people that tend to be very chameleon and charismatic. They tend to try to be whoever they think the person wants them to be, but they are trying to get their own needs met and not necessarily share a fair connection with the other person. The other type would be the overpowering subtype, and those are the ones that react to extreme helplessness and powerlessness, because that's a big fear. So those are your empire builders. Those are your ones that believe in big, huge physical strength and guns, and they're power hungry, those kinds of people. If they really put forth a lot of effort into those things being so important to them, then you might worry that there's a little bit of a trust issue or some expectations in relationships that have not been met. So the primary fear of these types of people is loss of control and failure, because as we discussed from their development, they have been treated as failure means a loss of love or a loss of connection, that the only way you can be or get love is to do the things that the other people want you to do. Some of the behaviors you might see in these kinds of people, especially in relationships, is this struggle with intimacy and relationships because of those feelings of dependency that can kind of come out of a relationship. They may not see the ability to be interdependent and actually foster healthy dependency needs, and then they get fear that they're going to be controlled. And they have a hard time finding that happy medium. So they kind of react to loving partners in a couple of different ways. They can be real sadistic and abusive. That could be one way. But they can also be impotent and just leave because it's frightening. And you can tell that that is somewhat associated with the early connection trauma in one of the earlier videos. So the other thing you might see with these types of people is kind of a projection of unwanted emotional states on other people, because they have a tendency to blame others for how they feel because they were so controlled as children. They didn't learn how to take personal responsibility for what was going on with them and to feel their emotions. So they kind of maintain this denial of their feelings by disconnecting from their body and staying focused on thinking and rationalizations. Thinking is believing in their mind. So if they can think something through, then that makes it true without understanding the finer nuances of connection in relationships and what they might actually feel. So as you can imagine, some of these people may struggle in treatment, but there is always a possibility to improve functioning in relationships with this kind of trauma. But they must really address that feeling of betrayal, which is sometimes difficult to identify because they may initially say, "Oh, I had a great childhood." But when you dig a little deeper and start discussing the relationships with their parents, you find the pressure there to be something and to be all things to all people, that kind of difficulty. And then they have to identify that hurt and powerlessness, which they, on the surface, don't even realize that they have. The next developmental step that they need to work on is fostering those healthy dependency needs and tolerating that anxiety that can kind of come along with that, and realizing that that's normal and that's okay to have those dependency needs, because everybody is interdependent. They need to have a backup, of course, to feel independent enough that they have that strength, but there is a necessity to, or a benefit to, being interdependent. Another thing that they can work on is kind of removing the masks that they put up. A lot of times they are, especially if they're the empire builders or they're focused on their external state and what they look like as far as building and demonstrating power, they may have to kind of look at that and see, do they really value that? Is this really important to them, or is it a mask to hide their true self? And they move towards authenticity and expressing their true selves by learning to kind of drop those masks and increase vulnerability. And so that can kind of be a challenge, is finding that strength and vulnerability, because taking that first risk to be vulnerable and allow connection with somebody else to support you is what's challenging for a lot of the trust types. So if you have any questions, please feel free to comment and I'll do my best to answer them. If you have other things that you want to go into more detail about, please let me know that as well. I'd be happy to look at those. So if you enjoyed this video, again, don't forget to share it with somebody who might need this information, and don't forget to subscribe. Other than that, I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day.